gonna do? King likes Daniel more than me. Did you? Oh, sorry. We're reading The Exiled Prince, and we have just come to chapter 12. So, on with the story. Remember that some of the advisors were very jealous of Daniel and of the trust that King Darius put in him, and they were looking for a way to get rid of him. Why didn't someone warn King Darius? Why didn't they say, Darius, don't sign that decree. It's a wicked plot against Daniel's life. But no one did. When the princes approached King Darius on his golden throne in the palace of Babylon, they looked so sincere and honest. It never occurred to the king to suspect them. "Oh, King Darius," they said piously, "we are so glad you're our king. We want the whole world to know how important you are. We have a plan to honor you." King Darius was pleased. After all, he was the conqueror of the mighty kingdom of Babylon. And yes, it would be nice to be honored by these princes. "We have written up a decree," they said, "to show everyone your great power. This decree makes the rule that no one can pray to any other man or god except you for 30 days. If a man breaks this law, he will have written that the punishment will be the den of lions." They all nodded to each other very wisely. "You don't have to do any of the work in making up the decree. We have it all written up here. All you need to do is sign it. Make it a law of the Medes and Persians, so that it cannot be changed." Now you would think that a king with the power to make a law that cannot be changed, not ever, not by anybody, not even by himself, you would think that a king like that would be very careful of the laws he made. But King Darius was flattered. He liked the nice things that these men were saying about him. He never even thought to stop and think about what it might do to anyone else in the kingdom, least of all to his good friend and helper Daniel. "I'll sign it," Darius said, and he did. It became a law of the Medes and Persians that no one could pray to anyone else except Darius 30 days. "Now we've got him," the princes whispered greedily. "This is Daniel's death warrant. If he doesn't pray, he isn't a good Jew. If he does pray, the lions will eat him for supper." As soon as Daniel heard about the decree, he went to his own house. He fell on his knees beside his windows, just as he had done all the years of his captivity. He faced the west because that way, in Jerusalem, was where God's holy temple had stood. Years before, when King Solomon had built the temple to God, he dedicated it with a prayer that Daniel had read again and again. King Solomon had knelt with hands lifted up in prayer to God and prayed, "If your people sin and you are angry with them and punish them by letting their enemies carry them off, if they are sorry for their sins and pray to you, facing this land and this house which I have built for you, then please, God, hear their prayer and forgive them." Excuse me. After Solomon built the temple, the children of Israel did sin, and God did let their enemies carry them away. And that's why Daniel always prayed by his chamber windows, opening to the west toward Jerusalem, toward the place where the temple had once stood. The wicked princes knew exactly where to hide to see if Daniel prayed, and sure enough, they caught him praying. He hadn't hidden away someplace. He prayed just like he always did. "Hooray!" the princes shouted. "It's the lion's den for you, Daniel." And away they sped to tell the king. They were breathing hard, but they tried to act very solemn, as if they were terribly disappointed that someone had broken the king's command. "Oh, king, didn't you sign a decree saying that no one could pray to anyone except yourself?" The king looked surprised. "Of course I did. You know that. You wrote the law." "Well, did it not forbid anyone to pray to anybody except you?" You know it did. Can you change the law now? No. It's the law of the Medes and the Persians, and it cannot be changed. Oh, that's too bad, King. For we caught Daniel the Jew praying to his God. He paid absolutely no attention to the new law. Too bad. He'll have to be thrown to the lions. That's the law. The king gasped. No, not Daniel. He had forgotten all about Daniel. I know he prays to his God, but I can't throw him to the lions. You made the law. Well, I'll just have to find some way around it, the king said, tight-lipped and angry with himself. He went to the judges. Help me find some loophole so that my friend Daniel won't have to be killed. Now the judges respected Darius, and they wanted to find a way to help him, but they shook their heads. He called his counselors. I've made a foolish law. Help me find some way to change it. They shook their heads. There is no way to change the laws of the Medes and Persians. The law cannot be broken. He searched the old records for excuses or loopholes, and he paced up and down in his royal chamber. All day long he worked and he worried, trying to find a way to save Daniel. But it was no use. He couldn't find any way to change the law. At sunset the princes came back. Time's up, King Darius. Throw him to the lions. It was true. There was nothing he could do. The law had to be kept. The land would soon turn to wickedness if the people found out that the laws could be broken without punishment. Tears came to the king's eyes. Oh, Daniel, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't realize what I was doing. But your God, the God you serve all the time, he will protect you, won't he? Daniel looked at the king sorrowfully and answered nothing. The king motioned to the soldiers, and they lifted the rock lid off the cave where the lions were kept. The lions leaped up at the men, snarling and slashing with their terrible claws. The soldiers lowered Daniel into the hole and then put the lid back on. And the king sealed the rock so that no one could try to come back and lift the lid off and rescue Daniel. The king went back to his palace. He didn't want anyone around him. He sent the orchestra away. He didn't eat any supper. He couldn't sleep. All he could think about was the horrible pit with the lions. He kept hearing their fierce growls and smelling the terrible smell of decaying flesh. What would he find in the morning? Could Daniel's God truly keep him alive? Or would there be only a small heap of bones with the lions gnawing on them? At dawn, Darius hurried to the den. He had the stone lifted off, and he called Daniel's name with a voice that broke with sorrow. Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living God, is your God whom you serve, is he able to deliver you from the lions? A strong, cheerful voice answered from the bottom of the pit. Good morning, King Darius. Yes, my God sent his angel to keep the lions' mouths shut. They couldn't hurt me. God knew that I had done no wrong, King Darius. Darius nodded sadly. I know, Daniel, and I'm sorry. He clapped his hands. Bring ropes, lift him out of there. Back at the palace, King Darius called the princes to him. They came, and their mouths dropped open when they saw Daniel. Daniel alive? Tush, a prince said. The king must have fed the lions ahead of time. That's why they didn't eat Daniel. They weren't hungry. The king cheated. That's right, the princes all agreed. The king must have cheated and fed the lions. You wicked men, Darius shouted. You hated Daniel without a cause. Now you'll find out if I fed the lions or if God kept his servant Daniel safe. The princes shrank back and started screaming. Soldiers, throw them to the lions. Before the bodies of those wicked men even touched the bottom of the cave, the lions had torn them limb from limb. They found out it wasn't that the lions were not hungry that had kept Daniel alive. It was God. King Darius wrote another decree, and this time it was a wise one. Men in every part of my great kingdom, Tremble and fear the God of Daniel. He is the living God, and he will rule forever. Well, that was quite a chapter. That's the part of the story that everybody has heard about Daniel. But there's a lot more to him than you knew, isn't there? There's a little more yet to come. I'll see you next time.